This is it. The first thread of the final stitch that will complete a picture too great to be seen. At least, right now. This is the beginning of her story. This is the beginning of the end. This is, well, let's see what happens next.
Hey, Venus.
Hey, Tin.
So we are going to, here, dive into your life. Everything that happened before the start of the campaign. Mainly, what happens after the first 15 years of your life. So if you want to kind of just very briefly go into those first 15 years.
Great. Thanks, Tin. So, first 15 years of Venus's life. Venus was born and raised on a farm, and she worked on this farm with her about 7 siblings and her parents. And Venus would spend a lot of her days working. And when she wasn't working, she was out in the town of Dagwood. And Dagwood is it's a farm town. It's a small port town. It's quaint, it's small. It gets the job done. And Venus knows about every nook and cranny there is to find. Venus spends a lot of time in town to sort of avoid staying at home. Over the years, she started to grow more and more uneasy about sticking around.
Okay, you live in this small town of Dagwood on your parents' farm with your siblings. Some of which, a couple of the older ones, have gone off to fight in some war that you really don't know anything about, but that doesn't really affect your life now, as you kind of just tend to various farm duties and weekly chores. One of those weekly chores is to go down into the town of Dagwood, gathering supplies and groceries from various other different kind of odd items that your parents need to upkeep the farm. This week you've just picked up an order from this cobbler, among other things, who your parents have been very close with for years. He's a gnome, and you always look forward to visits with him because he's a very personable guy. You've just left his shop, and you're walking down the street to your next stop, and you're walking with the general flow of traffic. As you are, you see something kind of odd and against the normalcy of this quaint town ahead of you. Pushing his way against the tide of townspeople, you see a tiefling man who looks to be about in his mid-20s. A bit farther behind him, you can see 3 people wearing the same or similar outfits, seemingly pursuing him. What do you do?
I guess Venus is gonna stay her distance, but she's gonna be slowly watching out to see what happens.
Okay, the man kind of draws nearer to your position, and he makes brief eye contact with you before he turns to the side. He's walking briskly, kind of running into you, having you drop some of your groceries. The two of you lean down to pick up the bag that you've dropped, which was full of a fruit called plum sprouts, which kind of look like an artichoke, but like when you peel it open, it kind of resembles a plum or a pear. Anyways, the two of you are kneeling down, and he's helping you pick up your plum sprouts, taking quick glances up at you. Oh, sincerest apologies, miss.
Oh, you're good, I guess. Thank you.
Hey, and he puts the last bit of fruit back into your bag and kind of looks behind him rushedly and says, This is kind of an odd question, but you wouldn't happen to know any convenient, quick places to hide, would ya?
Well, I would say you bumped into the right person. If you just go down that way, there's an alley on the side.
You know your way around town pretty well, then?
That's one way to put it.
Well, miss, it would be my honor if you could show me around. And he extends his hand.
Venus is kind of wary about just bumping into this stranger who's on the run, but
Yeah.
she's got a bit more time until her mom is expecting her back. So she takes it.
Okay, he kind of stands up and pulls you into the alleyway, looking back at his pursuers before pulling you further into the alleyway. You can see that the three men are still in pursuit, and they follow you down down into the alley. He is kind of leading you around, but not seeming to be able to shake these guys. What do you do?
I think Venus is going to try and take the lead here and try to dodge them out and taking many different corners and then sliding into a different alley.
Okay. Using your knowledge of the town's layout, you bring him to this little alcove that's tucked behind a few buildings after some very deft maneuvering, and you are successfully able to throw the men off your trails.
So, why were those guys after you again?
Well, sometimes the guy just can't catch a break.
That's not really answering my question.
And you still haven't given me your name.
It's Venus.
Pleased to meet you, Venus. The name's Kane. And he extends his hand.
Venus shakes it.
So, Venus, tell me a bit about yourself.
Only after I hear a bit more about yourself.
Well played. Well, my crew and I made harbor here yesterday to restock and set sail again, but we ran into some setbacks. We'll probably head out again tomorrow morning.
So that means you're a captain?
Oh, did I forget to mention that? It wasn't apparently obvious from my charming demeanor and my fancy hat?
Oh, well, I guess I must have missed that part. So, you have a ship?
Yes, I do.
So that's where you'll be staying tonight? I wouldn't want you sleeping in the streets.
Nah, my ship will almost certainly be destination number 1 for those fellas from before, so I doubt it would be wise to head back there. And besides, and he's kind of looking around now at your surroundings, I've never been one to knock an alleyway. They're cozy.
Venus doesn't really want to take this guy in. I mean, he is just some stranger. And the farm isn't exactly the best place to stay. But she also doesn't really want him to just be sleeping in some alcove in the middle of the night. Well, I would have offered my family's barn, but if you're certain you're good out here, I mean...
Kane, as you say that, he kind of gets a gleam in his eye, and he says, Miss, I would be honored to accept. You show him to your parents' farm, which is kind of similar to Japanese rice farms. They grow this grain that's not the most commonplace in your world, but it's in good enough demand. They had their seeds planted near the shore, and there's like a little lip that the water from the ocean only ever comes up in the tide once a year when it fills up the pools surrounding the farm. Those drain slowly over the course of the next season until the crop has been harvested a couple times. The farm, of course, is large enough so you won't need to worry about being seen by your parents or siblings. I'm sure you've also spent enough time here to know the layout of the spots easiest to hide in. Where do you take him?
The whole farm is surrounded by this cobblestone wall. So I think the are going to take him on near the edge of it that sort of faces more of the ocean, and it's just out of the line of sight of the main house.
All right. Here by this cobblestone wall, overlooking the ocean, you are both kind of sitting up on top of it for a bit. I think the sun is starting to set at this point, and you're both kind of quiet until he says, "So, farm life, huh?"
Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. You know, working in the fields, there's the barn I was going to have you sleep in, animals, cows, you know, the whole deal.
You know, you don't strike me as the typical tend to the cows kind of gal.
Well, you know, the cows aren't so bad. I mean, they're easy, they're quiet. I mean, I don't have to say anything to them, and they don't expect me to. And I don't think I want them to talk, because when they talk, they get loud. And when they get loud, I'm in the wrong for crying about it, so I don't cry. I tend to the cows. My sibling Juniper used to help me with the cows. I would always be able to talk to her, but then some war I don't even know about took her away, and I don't think I'll ever get to talk to her again. And I don't think she's ever going to come back. And if she even got the chance, I don't know if she would want to. She got to leave, and I didn't. So, I guess farm life is I wake up and I avoid the squeaky door on my way out. I tend to the fields. I go to the town to buy supplies, and I stay longer than I needed to, but not so long that my mom gets angry. And then I come home and I listen to her curse me for what the vendors set the prices as. And sometimes I think that I could find a way out of here. But I don't think that'll ever come. So it's okay. I'm all right. I deal with it.
What if you didn't need to anymore?
What do you mean?
Well, like I said, my crew and I are set to leave port tomorrow, soon as the sun rises full above the hills. And he puts his hand on your leg. Come with me. He hops down off the wall. Don't just say yes or no, I want you to really think it over. Come if you really, really want to. I'd like that very much. And with that, he starts walking back to your barn. The next morning comes, and you wake up as the first light of the sun cracks above the hills. What do you do?
Venus has never imagined herself being able to get out of here. She imagines just her life a lot, actually. She wakes up, she tries to sneak by whatever action is going on. It's normally her parents yelling, and she doesn't want to get yelled at, so she always keeps her head down. And her siblings are always nearby, and they're always in the field. And Venus does her share of the work, and then she spends the rest of her day in the town. And she is always sneaking through alleyways and alcoves, and she just hides. And she's never been able to think of a scenario where she could run away instead of hide. And if she doesn't take this chance right now, she doesn't know if she ever will be able to get to. So it's an easy decision, really. It's now or never. So Venus grabs her bag, and she packs this bag, and then she leaves. All of her belongings fit into this one bag, and this one bag is going to be with her for a while, so that's it. She just packs it, and she sneaks by her parents like she does every morning. She sneaks by her siblings, and she skips the work and she heads for the port.
Okay, you go down through the hills of your farm, down through the streets of town, along alleyways and down main roads, kind of going through until you end up at the pier. What do you do?
Venus doesn't really know where to go. She's looked at the ocean a whole lot of times, but she's never actually been on a boat. So she doesn't know what his boat looks like. He never described it, so I guess she's just gonna be calling out for him and yelling his name.
Okay. You're kind of moving down the port, yelling for him, and as you do, I think you stop for a moment and you look around, and then you hear Venus. You look up behind you and you see Kane standing on his ship, looking down at you with his hand outstretched. What do you do?
Venus takes it.
He pulls you aboard his ship, pulling you close to him. He takes a step back, more onto the deck itself, but he doesn't let go of your hand. And Venus, you don't want him to. As he's looking at you, he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a fruit, a plum sprout, a bit bruised it looks like from hitting the ground. Welcome aboard the Despair, miss. He kind of shows you around his ship, the Despair, and he takes you into his quarters, and there are two people standing there kind of waiting. There's a taller, thinner Dragonborn woman, and a Tabaxi man who would probably be much taller than you if not for his terrible posture. Venus, I'd like to introduce you to me left and right. This here is Spooky Marge, and Spooky Marge, the Dragonborn, says, pleased to be of acquaintance. And this is Little Pete. And Little Pete says, always a pleasure. A ship's crew tends to be as transient as a sandcastle built underwater, but these two have been sailing with me since before we ever reached the ocean. And I think this scene kind of ends with you talking with the three of them as Kane kind of starts barking some orders to the crew outside, who begin to leave port. In that moment, you sail away from the only home that you have ever known. A few days later, we'll say it's been about a week. The sun is low in the sky ahead of you, but it's like to your left a little bit. The crew's mostly below docks, save for a few on the main deck performing routine menial duties. You're at the helm with Kane, sitting on a small bench behind the wheel, and he's at the wheel. He's just checked his compass and adjusted the course slightly. And then back here at the stern, that's the back of the ship. You've got your helm, that's the platform up here, and you've got your wheel and your mizzen, which is the mast nearest us, not to be confused with your mizzen mast, of course, which is the next one down in line. And if you ask me, whoever named all these parts of these boats has no idea what they were doing.
That's quite a lot of terms. I'm gonna be honest with you here. I don't think I'm ever gonna remember them.
I think that's a common problem. I think that's why folks came up with names like Mizzen. I'm sure that was never an official name. Someone just made it up off the spot.
Makes sense.
You know, Venus, nothing beats knowing a heading and where you'll be and how you'll get there. There's nothing quite like moving the wheel, this little wheel, feeling the entire bulk of the ship turn at your command and slowing when you tell it to. Here. And he steps aside, kind of gesturing to the wheel.
Venus steps forward and takes the wheel.
Okay, you step up to the wheel and you place your hand on one of the handles, and Kane, he kind of steps behind you, taking your hand from the handle before moving it to one of the others, and he takes your other hand and moves it to one as well, and you're both standing there for, honestly, a while, his hands on your arms, his chin resting on the side of your head. After a few minutes, he moves his hands up your arms to your shoulders, turning you slightly, and he meets your eyes, and you see his, solid and yellow, A moment passes that feels like an eternity, and the rhythm of your chest crescendos as he leans in and kisses you. It doesn't last very long, though, because as you lose your focus here, the wheel slips out of your hand and begins spinning wildly. He moves in and gets a hold on it, righting the ship and getting you back on course, but he doesn't lose that smile. He holds onto it for the rest of the night. A few years go by, and let's say 3. Apart from Spooky Marge and Little Pete, you've seen the crew switch pretty much entirely a couple times over. You've stayed on the crew, of course, returning to port every now and again to resupply, but occasionally you get more supplies without needing to return to port. You're currently below decks in the common area with a few of the newer crewmates, telling some crazy story about what life is like on the Despair. What are you telling them?
It's a good question. Venus is telling them about a time when the Despair bested another ship, and Venus was the one who took out her sword and threw it against the captain's neck and said some really cool words, and they're all totally 100% true.
Okay, so you're kind of performing for these new hires, and after hearing the kind of uproarious laughter and applause from your amazing storytelling and charisma, Kane comes down the steps. What's going on down here, huh? He's looking pretty intently at the crew behind you.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine, Kane. I was just telling them a story about living on the Despair, you know? Just a couple of new guys, just telling them the ropes.
That's great. Look, how about look, hon, how about we just go back to our quarters for the night, huh?
Are you sure? I mean, I was just in the middle of a story.
As you kind of like turn back to gesture to the crew, he like kind of grabs your arm and he looks at you and says, "We're going."
Okay. Sorry, it won't happen again.
Okay, a few more years go by. We'll say it's 4 this time. Life has been exciting for sure, but the shine is beginning to come off the apple in a way. There are less high seas adventures and more cold nights in some damp part of the ship. Kane cares about you a lot, you tell yourself, and he really doesn't want you to get hurt. That's why he won't let you participate in the more dangerous parts of pirate life. That got hard. You couldn't do that anymore, so you decided to go above decks during a more commotion-filled evening. He saw you almost immediately. Some crewmates escorted you to your quarters before you could even take a further step. You've been in there for about an hour now when Kane walks in. What did you think you were doing?
I just thought that I could be of help. I'm, you know, all I do is sit here. I figured I might as well be of use. It wasn't that bad. It was just some little ship. You've dealt with bigger guys before.
I ask one thing of you, hun. All I ask is one thing! He picks up a small glass figure of a skull about the size of a baseball, and he's gesturing with it now. How many times do we need to go over this? What is it? What is it, really? Am I not enough for you? Is it that? Do I not provide?
No,
What do you
you're
think
fine. You're fine. It's on me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. I should have thought more.
What do you think you would have done up there? What do you think would have happened?
I thought I could help.
Did you even think that I might just be right? I don't ask very much of you. Stay safe down here. That is my only request of you. I can't keep doing what I do, what we do, what we need to do, if you keep going and trying to. And he throws the glass skull against your desk, shattering it into pieces, one of which slashes you across your face, leaving a deep red gash. over your nose.
Wow.
He takes a few breaths, and he turns around to leave before he turns again and says, "Where would you be without me?" And with that, he walks out the door. It's nearing 10 years now since you first left Dagwood, and things are not amazing for you. But you chose this life, you tell yourself. You chose this. Kane hasn't really let you participate in some of what he likes to call the bigger pills, harder to swallow. He's above decks doing one of those now, and you can hear some kind of commotion, but honestly, that's par for the course some days. You've been nauseous. Not seasick. Not anything from sailing. You've been able to handle life on the ocean perhaps better than most. You've helped aid your mother enough times to know exactly what this is. What are you doing below decks to help you deal with the nausea?
I think Venus is just laying in bed. The nausea is one thing, but the knowing is another. Lots and lots of thinking and how it's even just a lot of sitting there, I'd say.
Okay. You're sitting there contemplatively when your door opens and Kane walks in. Little bite of the ocean, eh?
Oh yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah, I've been there. Listen, hon, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I've decided the crew and I are about to wrap up one of these bigger pills, and I think it's about time you're at my side to see it through. How do you feel about this?
Many years ago, Venus would have been very excited about this. But I guess it still beats sitting in the same room. Just sitting there. So, yeah. Oh my God. Are you sure? Are you sure you want me to be up there?
Oh, yeah. And he kind of rushes over to you and grabs your hand and, come on, I don't want you to miss it. He leads you above deck and he shows you what he's been up to. It's dark out. You're on the open ocean and you can feel the water in the air as you see a mist has settled over the sea. You look to where he's pointing and you see another ship about 1,000 feet away, almost as big as the Despair. The lanterns are all lit on both of your ships and you can see what looks to be its entire crew tied up to the railing, the masts, some barrels, everything. There are a lot of barrels on the deck. This is the fun part, he says as he takes you up to the side of the ship, getting a clear view of this other one. He has one arm around your shoulder, and with the other he holds out his open hand, palm down to little Pete. Wait for it. He points at little Pete, and the cannon fires. The blast is almost loud enough to cover up the sounds of the screams from the other ship. Almost. You watch in horror as an ignition core is launched at the other boat, sailing through the air as it collides with the deck of the ship. As it hits, every single one of the barrels on the deck erupts into a gunpowder explosion, completely tearing apart that ship, and in an instant, those screams are silenced. You survey the wreckage of this boat, and the debris is floating all around you now. It's a miracle you weren't hit by any splintered wood coming from the ship. Pieces of wood, barrels, sails are all floating around the Despair, some of which have bodies on them, burnt and mutilated and completely unrecognizable. But perhaps the most troublesome sight of all is Kane. Bathed in the red light of this blazing fire, grinning from ear to ear. He leans down to you. Don't worry, hun. We got all the important junk off the ship before we sunk her. He turns around and starts barking orders to the rest of the crew, and you're left standing there, soaking up the light of the fire, burning up dozens of corpses in the water. think we'll cut to a few hours or so later. You've made port, and the crew has come back from selling the goods from the ship they sunk. Kane has gone to the bed for the night, and you're alone in your quarters. What do?
Venus has been on this ship for, was it 10 years at this point?
10 years, just about.
10 years. And she's never been able to see that. He always said it was the big pills to swallow. And I guess she just never really considered what that would mean. She's heard sounds, but they were just people, and he had nothing on his face that even looked even feeling a little bit bad. Venus could deal with sitting in the same room and him screaming and him throwing things and all the other things he would do. But she's never seen the type of things that he does to other people. And she thinks about what he would be able to do to this kid that he doesn't even know about. And so really, it's an easy decision. So quietly, she grabs her one bag and she puts all the belongings she has into this one bag, and she sneaks into the other parts of the ship and takes some of the gold that's hidden away. Just enough to not be noticeable, but just enough to be okay for a while. And she stops and looks at the ship one time, and this was her escape for a long time, but she needs to leave again. And this time, it's her choice. And so she takes her one bag, and she leaves.
You don't hear anything. You maybe check back the next morning, and the despair is gone, seemingly without even noticing that you weren't on it anymore. And that's it. Over the next few months or so, how do you fill your time?
Venus doesn't stop for a second. She is continuously moving and continuously taking jobs. She hops on boats from port to port. She does little things, and she just keeps on going because she needs to get as far away as she can. Because she can't risk him finding her again. He might be looking, and everywhere she goes, if she stays long enough, that would be bad. So she just keeps moving.
Okay, we'll jump just about 9 months later, and at this point you are just extraordinarily pregnant. You travel on foot from one port to another, and this one that you landed at is called Port Canary. You walk through its little raggedy town gate with its... I don't think even all the letters of the name of Port Canary are still on the sign, but you walk through it. It's smaller than most of the settlements that you've been through, and you can't remember having ever been through here before today. You go through your typical business when you enter a new town. What does that look like?
Well, I guess usually Venus would stop and try to find a building close to the water, because if it's close to the water, then they're probably hiring fishermen, and Venus can fish. Venus does a good job at fishing, but I think at this point she is just extraordinarily pregnant, and she just thinks that she just needs one night. One night she'll sit down, and then next morning she'll be up and moving again. She just needs one more night, and then it's fine. So she walks close to the harbor and tries to find a place to stay.
Okay, so you wander through this town for a bit. It's not a big enough town where you wouldn't be able to very easily find the closest thing they have to an inn, I guess is what you'd call it. So you find this little seaside inn. What's it called, do you think?
Hmm. What do I think it's called?
Yeah, what do you think it's called?
I think it's called um the Coast Inn.
Okay. Wonderful. Coast Inn. You enter Coast Inn, and you see a tavern floor with chairs and tables and booths, and there's a bar. There are various patrons currently dining and conversing, but they pay you no mind as you walk in. Behind the bar is a dwarf with extremely warm and bright features, an older guy with very kind eyes that meet yours as you walk up to him. Well, hey, kiddo. Don't think I've seen you around these parts before. The name's Shepard. What's yours?
Um, my name is Venus. Hey, is there a room available for just tonight?
Just, he kind of looks you over. He says, just one night?
One night, and then I'll be out of here.
Look, I can tell you seem like a pretty busy woman, but, look, I've got a room, but, how about this? I'll give it to you, free of charge, so long as you stay until that kid comes out of you.
I don't think you will understand. I need to be out of here by tomorrow. I'll pay you gold. I have money.
I don't need your gold. Mainly, I'm just concerned. I'm sure you've got a pretty solid reason to be pretty jumpy, but look, I can't have you just out in the world when that little chest of yours is ready to pop. Nobody's got to know you're here. I won't tell nobody. I'll take care of you. The second you have that kid, you can be on your way. No words about it. How's that sound?
Right afterwards, I'm leaving, and that's it.
That's it. He shows you to your room, which is fairly small, but you could tell there probably were definitely smaller ones in this building, and it's got a window looking out over it's actually a really nice view of the town and the ocean, and you settle in for the night. The very next day, it happens. Shepard is with you the entire time as you give birth to a beautiful baby boy. He looks healthy, he looks very unhappy, but most importantly, behind his wide golden eyes, he looks so much like you. Shepard hands him to you, and he says, well, it's a boy. What are you gonna call him?
His name is Apollo.
Hey everybody, it's Tin, and I'm here, back again with your show notes. I'm going to read them, and I'm going to do them, and it's all going to be great. I want to give a super quick shout out to Dax Ayrton on Reddit. He's great. You should check his stuff out. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. This episode is... Honestly, I think I've worked harder on this episode, put more hours into it than genuinely anything in my entire life, which speaks something about it, but I'm really proud of it. Gabs and I worked pretty much tirelessly for months trying to make this as perfect as we could, so I really hope you're enjoying it, and just as a courtesy for the hours that we've put into it, if you could tell someone about the show, share the show around using hashtag TheDiceCast on any social media, and you can find all of our links to all of our stuff at linktr.ee/Dice Club Podcast. There's no V in that one. Sorry that I am sounding sick right now. It's because I am. Got a little bit of a cold, which, fun fact,
It's actually the same cold that you'll hear in episode 27, which we recorded a couple days ago. But yeah, this month has been going great. Man, I'm so excited that this episode is out. The turnout has been awesome for all these episodes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. This stuff it really means just so much. And this is like 2 years. Is this two whole years of this podcast? Thank you for still listening. I said that 8 times this ad break. The cold meds are insane right now. Next episode will be out on the 23rd, which it's gonna be Tuesdays. I decided that it's not gonna be Mondays. It's gonna be Tuesdays. It just works a lot better that way. The next episode will be out on the 23rd, and we got one on the 30th, and then we'll be going every other week after that. So thank you for listening. It's time to get back to the adventure. Okay, we're gonna jump forward now about 4 years. What have you been up to in that time?
Venus said that after that night she was going to be out of there, but that ended up not happening. Shepard was just so unbelievably nice. He let her stay there free of charge, and so the only way that she could repay him is to pick up a couple of jobs for him. And so Venus would go fishing for him to stock up the food for the tavern, and Venus was just saving up money. And Venus had never had so much time. I mean, she was raising a kid, but she also had time. It was just them, and that was it. So Venus picked up a hobby that she was into when she was really little, but she never had time to continue it. And that would be painting. Venus is a painter. So along with these fishing jobs, Venus would sell paintings in the town, and she grew closer to the people in the town, and the people in the town liked her. And so it was just job after job of her enjoying Port Canary.
Okay, I think in this next scene you're coming back from one of these jobs. I think a fishing trip specifically for Shepard, and you enter Coast Inn, and it's late. Most of the regulars have cleared out of the kind of tavern area, and you see Shepard and Apollo at the bar. Shepard's on one side, Apollo's on the other, and they are drawing together on a few pieces of scrap paper with whatever the fantasy equivalent of crayons is, just coloring and laughing together. They haven't seen you yet. What do you do?
I'm home.
As you say that, Apollo turns and he sees you, and he smiles so wide. He nearly falls off his stool as he gets down and runs over to hug you. And Shepard says, "Hey kiddo, how are the waves?"
Pretty good. I got a new batch for you. Left it where I always do, so I'll get to it eventually. How was y'all's day?
It was good. This fella's drawings are really starting to come along, huh? Something like a prodigy.
Well, I'd hope so.
Apollo kind of just takes your hand and leads you over to his drawings, and he is showing them off to you. And as he's kind of showing them off, he yawns a little bit.
Well, I'm sure you both had a very eventful day, and I know I did, so I think it's time for bed.
As you say that, Apollo kind of just nods understandingly, and he runs up the stairs, up to his room, up to you guys' room. And Shepard kind of talks to you and says, how many you catch this time? Big haul or no?
Pretty average size haul. I'll do better tomorrow, though. Haul. You betcha.
Oh yeah, I bet. He reaches, fishes around under the bar and pulls out a bag with just a lot of gold coins inside. Judging by the size of it, there are many more coins than your fish would be worth, and he hands it to you.
You're sure this is the right amount?
I did not go to 8 years of mathematics school to get called out by some Fisher lady. You best be getting on up into bed. You've had a long day. So have I.
Okay.
And he yawns and he starts wiping down the counters.
Thank you. Again. Good night.
Night, kiddo. And you head upstairs to the room that Shepard has kept for the two of you, rent-free. You walk in and you take a look around and see the walls that are nearly completely covered in finger paintings of various quality. What do you do when you get here?
Is Apollo already in bed?
He is taking those drawings that he made and putting them in a kind of binder with a bunch of the other ones that he's done.
Venus is gonna go up to him and be like, you know what, kid? You are getting really good at this. Maybe next time I should bring you with me on a job. I think you could be of major help to me. But let's deal with this tomorrow, okay? I feel like it's time for bed, okay?
He kind of yawns and you put him to bed. And as you're putting him to bed, Gabs.
Yeah.
How does Venus feel about the way that her life is like going right now? Like just her day-to-day, like the actions that she's taking right now. How does she feel about her life?
I would say it's unlike a feeling that Venus has ever had in her life. She has spent a good portion of her life just doing monotonous tasks, farming, sitting in a room, the lot of it. But for the first time ever, this was on her. She decided that she was going to take these jobs, and she decided that she was going to start painting again, and she decided that she was going to stay here, and she was going to make a life for herself that she is actually happy with. So it's just indescribable, I think, to her. It's rough at times, taking care of a kid like this, but he's really good, and life is really good, and she's happy.
It gets a little bit later, and you've settled into bed, and you look over and you can see that Apollo's kind of started snoring a little bit. And as you're laying there in bed, Venus has made a lot of choices that led to this moment, right? How does she feel about those choices that she made?
Every life comes with a lot of choices. Venus's choices, I would say, are pretty large, but those choices got her here, and yeah, it was awful living hell again and again, but if she had to go through that to get here, then it was all worth it.
How does she feel about where it seems that her life is headed over the coming years?
Part of her is still scared, and I think Venus will always just be a bit scared of the uncertainty, because she's the one who severed the ties, but there's always the chance that those ties come back. But I would say she's really excited, and she is saving up money for something big, and that's crazy. And she's got a kid, and that kid is aging just so much. Like, he's just already amazing, and she just can't wait to see what he'll be able to do.
I think that's a good place to call that scene. About 3 years pass. He's about 7 now. What did those years look like for you and Apollo?
I would say once Apollo got a bit older, he started coming with her on jobs, helping out. Yeah, just a lot of them being together, and the money that Venus was saving up for finally got enough.
I think the thing that pushed you over the threshold of money that you were, the specific number that you were saving for, was Shepard himself. He bought a painting from you for much more than it was worth. What was it of?
I would say it was of the inn.
That's wonderful. Okay, so with this money that you've saved, you take Apollo and you go to the pier and the shipwright, and you get a title and a ship of your own. After all these years, after all this work, you finally have a ship that's yours. What do you call it?
It's a great question. I think this ship is just another big chapter in both Venus's and Apollo's life. And Venus's life has not been great, but it's getting better, and she sees the light, and I think she names the boat the Hope.
You spend the rest of that day trying to get just a few people from town to help crew your ship, and I think there's plenty of people who have experienced sailing and who know you well enough to be more than willing to help you out. And the following morning, you and Apollo head off on the Hope, dreaming of your new life on the ocean once again. You and Apollo are on the deck of the Hope, and I think it's safe to say you're both very excited. Has Apollo ever actually been on like a sailing ship before now?
The only boat he's been on are the little dinky ones that Venus takes fishing.
He's gone on like little fishing trips with you before?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Okay. That's wonderful. Okay, so he's very, very excited about being on one of the big ones. And the crew is kind of just doing the menial labor that comes along with just sailing in a line. And you are at the helm with Apollo. What are you doing?
I would say Venus is showing him all the lingo,
Like?
telling him about the lines and the sails.
Okay, yeah. Anything else? Any other kind of choice things that you're...
The rat lines.
The rat lines, okay.
Now
That's one
over
of
here
them.
you see we've got the rat lines, which is very different from the normal lines. You see the rat lines are the little the little ladder ropes hanging from the posts, and over there's the wheel. The wheel's pretty cool. I can show you the wheel.
Mom, I've seen the wheel before.
Are you sure you've seen a wheel? Because this wheel,
I think
I
I've
paid
seen this
top
wheel,
dollar
Mom.
for this wheel.
I know you did. You showed it to me already.
Well, I could show you it again.
Okay. You go over to the wheel, and he still kind of hasn't really like gained his sea legs yet. It's just the day after. And he kind of like wobbly walks over to the wheel and trips a little bit, stumbling into it, but he's like holding on to it just like in two spots that are just so incorrect.
Okay. So, first of all, you said you've seen a wheel, but what I'm seeing here is that you have never held a wheel. 'Cause you're doing... Listen, you're doing great, bud, but okay. And she grabs his hand and puts them in the right spots. And she says, "See, you're already like a captain already. You're a natural at this."
He smiles really wide and says, well, I don't know about a natural, but that's, thanks, Mom."
Of course, bud.
And you spend kind of the rest of the day, just hanging out with your son, just showing him how boats work, how to actually sail a ship. I think the next scene is 3 years later. What do those 3 years with Apollo and the Hope, what do they look like?
The two of them, they spend a lot of time on the water. I mean, Venus, her goal with this is she's a pirate. She's lived the pirate life before to an extent, but she just wants to be different from Cain.
Mm-hmm.
She has seen now what Cain actually did, and I would say Venus is doing the exact opposite. Venus and Apollo and the rest of the crew, they sail from port to port in search of people who need help. And Venus helps those that are dealing with the same guys like Cain.
I like that.
Thanks.
I like that a lot. This scene, you are I think you're at one of these ports, and you're doing just kind of a little supply run. I think you're actually back at Port Canary, and you're doing a little supply run, which is a pretty routine thing. How often do you return back to Port Canary, would you say?
I would say pretty often. Like, I would say when they stop at Port Canary, I think they would stop there for a while.
You and Apollo are kind of on the main road that leads along the pier, and it's lined on one side with kind of market stalls and little shops. You're shopping at one of these when you see down a few stalls there's some commotion that starts to unfold. There's a couple elven guys who are typically a more lean race, but these two are pretty built. And they've bumped into an elderly halfling, causing her to drop her basket of fruit and breads onto the cobblestones. You see these guys kind of like apologizing profusely, and they help her pick up her groceries and stuff, and the flow of foot traffic starts up again. And as it does, you notice that they are kind of working in tandem to sneak and pocket a couple of the pieces of fruit and bread rolls away from this halfling. A look at Apollo tells you that he's kind of noticed this as well. We're going to jump forward a little bit, and you're heading back from the market to the pier. You've kind of, after that happened, you've been keeping, I guess, like tabs on those two guys. And as you're heading back to the pier, you see them again, and they're a few paces ahead of you, and you watch as they turn down into an alleyway. What do you do?
And Apollo is with me still? Yeah?
Apollo is with you, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Venus is gonna let go of Apollo's hand, which she was holding, and she's gonna reach for her sword.
He sees you kind of like reaching for your sword, and like he knows like what these guys did, and he kind of knows you well enough to know what you're about to try to do. And he says, Mom, wait, it's just, it was just a couple oranges. Mom, they're so much bigger than you, and you're outnumbered. She could just get some new oranges. This isn't worth it.
Hey, bud. The right thing is always worth it. She could just get some more oranges, or I could get them back for her. So, listen, you're gonna stay right here, and Mom's gonna go, and Mom's gonna be right back. Okay? I promise you.
He exhales, and you kind of turn the corner into the alleyway. And I think this scene is better if we watch it from Apollo's perspective. And so he sees you walk down into the alleyway, and then I think we hear like comical like punching sounds and like banging sounds and stuff. And then you turn the corner again, holding a couple oranges and a roll of bread in your hands. What do you do?
See, bud? Told you. Easy peasy. And I guess they're just gonna try and find the lady again.
Okay, she was still kind of out and about as well, and you find her pretty quickly, but she thanks you like a lot for standing up to those guys. And getting the fruit back, and then the two of you head back to Coast Inn, and we're going to now jump forward about 4 years. 4 years later, and we see you in your quarters. It's a little bit before the end of the sunset, and what are you doing now?
I think Venus is putting together a couple of posters to hang up around the ship and collecting the last of the party supplies. And she's looking around the office too, and covering the walls are a number of paintings, some made from little child's finger painting, and others are beautiful renditions of the sunset over a boat. And she's just thinking about Apollo because it is his day. So I think she's gonna go out and look for him.
All right. You head out to the main deck and you look around at the scene. The Hope is currently docked at Port Canary, and you see the crew all working together to put up banners and ribbons of a bunch of different colors, but mainly gold. There are lanterns being strung, as well as lowered down into the water. You see everyone you've had on your crew for the last few months, and everyone's helping out. You even see Shepard here setting up with some of the other townsfolk. Everyone's helping set up for Apollo's 14th birthday party. One person you don't see, however, is Apollo. What do you do?
Well, he's gotta be around here somewhere, so I guess Venus is just gonna start calling out for him.
Okay, you call out his name a couple times, and then you hear, "Hey, Mom!" And you look up, and you see him there, standing on one of the beams of the sails, holding onto a string of lanterns, hanging them up below the sails, as well as tying off some ribbon up there, and he waves at you very, very excitedly.
Holy shit! Oh my god, what are you doing up there? Dude, Apollo, kid, oh my god. Would you go? Can you get down? Do you need help? I can get. You want me to come up there? Are you good?
I've got this, Mom. It's okay. And you watch him kind of move along this sail post, and immediately your worries are all put to shame. He maneuvers across the beams and through the cordage and rigging and all the way down the rat lines with an incredibly impressive amount of dexterity. And he hops off the ropes and he stands there next to you. The sun is nearly set now, and the two of you look around at the party you've all set up, admiring your good work. At that moment, after the sun has passed behind the mountains, though you can still see its light in the sky, some crewmates and townsfolk begin playing lutes and lyres and flutes and drums and balisets and tin whistles, and Apollo rushes from your side and grabs the fiddle he set near them, and he begins playing along with the band. You watch him play, and as he plays, he's doing a little dance, and you make eye contact with him, and he's smiling so wide. The crew and the townsfolk have also started dancing with each other to the song they're making together, the rhythm of their feet only accentuating the music. You watch him play for a bit more before Shepard comes to your side and says, "Some party, huh?"
It's really great, isn't it?
It is. Like all the, and he kind of gestures around all the decorations that were just hung up.
Yeah, I'd like to take credit, but it was really a group effort, and...
Yeah, I didn't really see much out here.
Oh, you know me. I was just, sitting around, thinking.
Nah, I do know you. What are you thinking about?
Well, you know how birthdays work. It's, 14 years since he came here, but then that also means 14 years since I came here. It's just, I never knew time could fly so fast. And, I was just looking at him, and you see him up there, he's doing fantastic. He's literally incredible. You should have seen him earlier. He was doing flips and stuff. It was insane. And sometimes he just makes me so worried, but there's no point in worrying because he always figures it out. He's 14 years. He probably won't even need me pretty soon.
I think there's a part of him that's always gonna need you, kiddo. And as he says that, you see Apollo kind of hand off his fiddle to someone else, and he joins the rings of people dancing, trading partners until he reaches you, pulling you into the group to dance with him. And I think the last thing we see in the scene is the camera kind of panning back, and we see the town celebrating on the Hope, covered in its decorations and lanterns, and the hundreds of lanterns sent off floating from it in the ocean surrounding it, the last glimmer of sunlight faint in the sky as you dance with Apollo and celebrate his life. Just over 4 years later, Apollo has reached his adulthood. He's maybe just a little bit taller than you, even, but he's still a pretty skinny kid. You spent years and years, over a decade now, sailing as a team, and I think at this point you've amassed a loyal crew of about 20 people who have been with you for a few years now, simply because as they'll all testify to be around Venus and Apollo is to become good. Over the last 3 days, you've been out on a contract job from some dingy harbor a few miles off of Port Canary. What was the job?
The job was probably just like all the rest of them, find this person and bring them back in.
Like a bounty hunter?
Well, I mean,
That's really cool. I like that a lot.
we don't kill them,
Well, yeah.
but yeah, we collect that bounty.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so yesterday you completed the job and you collected your bounty, and you've made your heading back to the harbor. You and Apollo are at the helm and you're at the wheel. That's when you see it. You wish it wasn't the case, but you've played this moment in your head over and over, dreamed this vision for years, hoping it never came to be, but here it is. Clear as day, off in the distance, you see the instantly recognizable shape and flying colors of the despair of Cain, and it's heading towards you. What do you do?
I think Venus does nothing for an extended period of time, just scared. But she has this moment and she's got to snap out of it because she's Venus and she's the captain and she's got to save everybody because she always does. So, I think after a moment she starts barking orders. Everybody, we're turning this ship around. We need to get as far away from these guys as possible. You over there, move that line. You over there, do that thing. And we're out of here. Okay, don't engage.
Mom, hey, what's the issue? What's the we've taken this kind of ship before. I've seen the shape. We've beaten this kind of guy before. What's the holdup?
It's not worth it.
Mom, who's on that ship?
I think she just looks at him.
He looks back at you, and at this point, I think he knows you well enough to intuit. And as you're looking at him, you can see this moment of dawning realization come over his face. And he looks around at the crew, and he says, Hold those orders. Mom, look at me. We've beaten the bigger guys before. You know I'm right. You know we can do this. It doesn't matter who's on that ship. And he kind of puts his hand on your shoulder and he leans up to you. He says, we can do this. What do you do?
You know, Apollo, I don't think I'll ever be ready for this. But okay. Now you listen to me. You're going to stick by my side this whole time and we're going to be in and out and it's going to be quick and easy. Okay? You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. I trust you.
Quick and easy, he says, and he kind of starts telling orders to the crew to head right towards the ship, and as you near it, you bring the Hope around the starboard flank of the Despair, cannons at the ready, letting out a rainstorm of shots as you pass by, managing to hit this considerably larger ship with most of your shots as plenty of theirs miss you. You shout commands and the crew reloads before they take hold of line, heaving and belaying as you make hard to starboard, and so does the Despair as you level out, now side by side, moving in the same direction as, with another shout of command, more heavy cannon fire rings out from both ships. Apollo looks at the Despair, then at you, before he runs down the steps of the helm, shouting orders now as well. You see him climb the ratlines and shout something else as a few crewmates ready the bridges to fall over to board your enemy ship. What do you do?
Venus is gonna stick with Apollo no matter what. So she follows him.
Okay, you shout for one of the crewmates to come take your place at the helm, and you rush down, drawing your sword as you see Apollo cut a line and swing across the gap, landing on some of the Despair's ratlines, nimbly recovering and making his way through the rigging with ease, heading towards the helm where you can now see Cain himself. You gun it across the deck, and racing across a bridge, you see that Apollo has reached the helm and is already crossing swords with Cain. You've just boarded the Despair, and you see multiple of your crew charging through these pirates, dueling with impressive amount of poise and talent, but they're heavily outnumbered. What do you do?
Venus she's gonna try to help where she can, but her main goal is to get to Apollo. That's it.
Okay, you start heading towards the helm, and you clash swords with a crewmate you don't recognize, and handily get him off balance before you knock him off the side of the ship. And another comes with a clumsy swing, and within a few hits, you push her to the ground when you see Little Pete. He definitely sees you too. Roll strength plus proficiency.
Holy shit!
Playing D&D now.
Gotta get my character sheet out. This bitch wasn't ready.
Why did you have your character sheet out?
Because I forgot.
All right.
That is 23.
23, okay. Okay, so Little Pete kind of charges towards you, and he has his rapier drawn and swings kind of above your head, and you quickly parry it before he, jabs forward, and you duck back, swinging your blade to the side, and he kind of trips, and with that, you manage to get behind him, and with a hit from the butt of your cutlass, he tumbles over into the water. Someone slashes your shoulder from behind, and you stagger forward before promptly turning around and parrying their next blow, riposting with a slash of your own, knocking them down. You head towards the helm and attack another crewmate who never stood a chance, having her on the ground in moments, before you lock eyes with Spooky Marge. She charges straight for you, slashing her long cutlass down hard and missing you to your right, before surprisingly quickly she swings it back around at you, almost before you're able to block her blow, locking blades with her. Roll strength and proficiency again.
20.
Okay, you grab a line before dealing a blow to her arm, and it clinks off her scales before you deflect a strike from above, kicking her in the chest, knocking her back and knocking the wind out of her. She recovers quickly enough with a whining slash down towards you. Roll again.
18.
Okay, you roll to the side, dodging her blow, before kicking her back and knocking her against the rigging, and as she tumbles forward, you wrap the line in your hand around her left leg, and as she turns around, she raises her cutlass to hit you again, but before she can swing, you cut a line to your right, setting the rope around her leg taut and pulling her into the air. You're at the helm stairs now, and you run up to see that in the short time it took you to get there, on his knees is Cain. Apollo standing over him, sword to his throat. Apollo is missing his signature smile, but you can see in his eyes that he's incredibly proud of himself. Cain sees you, and he's got a smug grin across his face. Hey, hun. He looks at Apollo and then back at you. Looks an awful lot like you. He mine?
You don't get to ask that question.
He does not take his eyes off of you. It's good to see you, Venus.
I think Venus she's gonna draw her sword.
Apollo sees you draw
And-
your sword, and he's like, hold up, we've got him. We have him. What are you doing there?
You don't know what this guy has done and what he'll continue to do. It's the only way.
Look, no. Mom, is that right?
She takes a deep breath and she says, no, I guess it's not.
We've got him.
Okay. I guess she puts the sword away and grabs some rope.
Okay, you and Apollo both tie him up. I'd say probably very uncomfortably. And he says, what should we do with the rest of the crew and the ship?
What's the crew doing right now?
They have seen that you've bested their captain, and they have dropped their weapons as your crew has kind of come over and is making sure they don't pull anything.
Venus is gonna go to the edge of the helm and she's gonna address the Kane's crew.
Okay.
Listen, I know what it's like to be under Kane. So I'm gonna be very nice about this. Take the ship and go. And start a better life for yourselves because I know that you can do better than this. And that's that.
Okay, you and the crew take Kane, and you put him in the brig with the other bounty that you have, and then you set heading back to Port Canary. A few hours later, you're on the Hope, and your crew is busy taking inventory of the plunder they were able to accrue from the Despair, while you and Apollo are sitting up on top of one of the sails.
Apollo, I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, Mom, you know you don't have to do that.
No. Let me listen. Listen here. Okay, we're doing this. As I've told you, I had kind of a rough life before Shepard took us in. But I never expected to be able to get closure from that. So I wouldn't have been able to do without you, and I wouldn't be here without you. And I just need you to know that you were so cool up there. You're so fast, and you're so good at what you do, and I'd say you're even a better pirate than I am. So you're just so incredible, and I love you so much.
That was one of the last happy memories you have of your son. The five of you see Venus, Shepard, and Apollo all sitting together. The time is frozen. You're all standing at Coast Inn, watching this scene. The shape of Novella is there with you, although her form is entirely composed of white light now. A voice that definitely isn't Novella's comes out of it, and she says, Venus, you don't have to watch this next part. But it's important that the rest of you see. Are you ready? And she turns her head to you, Venus.
I guess so.
Do you watch?
I don't think so.
I think I'm gonna hit the hay. I love you both, but today was busy enough without you getting back prisoners in hand. Night, kiddos. I'll see you tomorrow. You and Apollo are sitting together for a few moments before he says, I think I'm gonna go for a walk down the coast for a while.
Okay, well, don't have too much fun without me. Be back soon, okay? It's getting late.
All right, I promise. And you see him walk out the door. We see Apollo walking down the main market street of Port Canary. He likes taking these kinds of night walks, just to have some time away from all the excitement, and it gives him plenty of time to watch the moon and the waves. It's routine. What's not routine, however, is hearing any kind of activity, especially not a cry for help. We see Apollo go to investigate, rounding the corner of an alleyway to see a townsperson slumped down at the end corner, getting kicked by two larger figures, much larger than him. This person is in pain. He can't have that. Venus, you're sitting at the bar, drink in hand, thinking about the completely incomprehensible week that you've had. And then you hear it. You don't ever stop having nightmares about that sound. That agonized scream. His agonized scream. You run out of the inn. You run faster than you've ever ran, and you see him. At the end of an alleyway, you see your son. He's slumped on the ground against the wall. You know it's him. You know it is, but you can hardly recognize him. You run to him just in time to see down the bend the haunting figures of Spooky Marge and Little Pete as they round a corner hundreds of feet away, leaving your field of view. What do you do?
Venus doesn't stop for a second, and she pretty much like falls next to him, and she holds him, and she's, oh, Apollo, are you, what happened? Are you okay? What? Oh, Apollo, no, please.
As you look at Apollo, it appears that he was kicked, beaten, thrown around, stabbed multiple times, the handle of a knife still extending from his shoulder. He looks up at you and sees you behind the blood and tears on his face, and you see him smile at you. Mom, Mom, I saved him, Mom. I did right. I did it, Mom. I know I did.
Hey, look at me, no, hey, you did so good, and listen, you gotta stay with me, okay? Look at me, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine, okay, just stay with me for a little bit longer.
He smiles at you, and he closes his eyes. There, in that alleyway, in that sleepy little town, as blood and tears mixed with mud and water on the ground, as the moon, rising high enough now to shine down through the alley, illuminates you. As you hold every piece of joy and love and hope that you've ever hoped of gaining back so tightly in your arms, you feel the last breath he ever takes. There in that alleyway, a piece of the ocean dies with him. What do you do?
Venus stays there for a while, and she is just talking to herself at this point, and she just keeps saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. I trust you so much, and you did great. You always did great. You always went and you helped them. You helped me. You helped me in more ways than I think you could have ever understood. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, bud. And I think after a while, she silently picks him up and brings him to the shore.
Okay.
Venus lays him down in a little rowboat, and she looks him over one last time, and she takes off his statement pieces. Apollo was always one to dress to impress, and he never had a day where he looked like he rolled out of bed. So she takes off his long earrings, gold earrings that end with a star, and she takes off his golden pendant centered with a bright blue gem. And these are the last two things that she has of him. And it hurts to look at him because she wasn't able to save him. Venus, she's the strong pirate. She's the strong pirate that gets everybody out of things. She saves people, but because of her decision, she lost the best thing that ever happened to her. And I don't think she can handle that. So Venus lays him down in the boat, and she strikes a match, and the boat is set on fire as she pushes it away into the ocean.
We watch as this flaming boat sails past the arching edges of the bay, illuminated by the moon so brightly. Where do you go from here?
Venus does the one thing that she knows how to do. She boards back on the Hope, and it hurts. She sees the lanterns that he put up that they've been too lazy to take down, and she heads back into her office, and the entrance of the door is carved with little lines that show how tall he's gotten. The walls are covered in paintings of the ocean and sunsets and boats. And in the corner there's a little finger painting of a pink figure and a smaller, darker pink figure. But it hurts too much to look at, so Venus keeps her eyes on the mission. She takes out her one bag from under her bed. It's a blue satchel with a golden button, which Apollo had rightly named her cool pirate backpack. Even though it wasn't really a backpack, ever. It was always a satchel, but the name stuck. And so she packs some clothes and all of the belongings that she wants to keep with her. And she also pulls out a piece of paper and a pencil. And she starts to write a note. And she writes, "Thanks for everything, Venus." And she leaves the Hope and enters the Coast Inn and lays it on the bar where she was sitting last. And she leaves, and she takes her one bag, and she looks back at the ocean one last time. And the boat is very far off in the distance now. And she turns away. She leaves. She runs away again through the big gate with the letters Port Canary. And that's it.
The scene freezes here, and we're back. The five of you and Novella are watching this play out. And if the scene is frozen before it kind of fast forwards through the next 2 years. What did those 2 years look like?
It was a lot of walking. Venus has spent enough time on the waters. They did her well for a while, but she can't go back there. So she's on land again, and she's just walking. And she doesn't have an end in sight. It's just job from job to campsite to job to town, and there's no stopping. Venus keeps moving because she doesn't know what else to do.
We see the scene kind of fast forward through those 2 dull years of odd jobs and little moments until it freezes again in a tent, pitched just outside a mountain range, where 7 adventurers are plotting their course into a cavern. You're all in that black space again. Where Novella was, you now see an old woman clad in black tattered robes. This is just one piece of a bigger picture. One thread of a tapestry long in the making, and we're now nearing its completion. She waves her hand, and you all feel instantly rejuvenated, and you can go ahead and treat that as a long rest. She waves her hand again, and you're...
Just kill me.
Keep your fucking hit points.
Keep your fucking hit points, 10.
She waves her hand and, again, and you're on the deck of Novella's Despair. Time is frozen again, and you see Cyrus climbing over the edge of the ship's gunwale, having just made it up the rope. And the woman speaks again. You must continue on your own path, but I urge you, fighting to kill him is a losing battle. He underestimated you once before, but that is a mistake he will not make again. She turns around, taking a few steps back towards her loom before turning around again. Oh, and you might want to jump. She turns again, and instantly, time is moving once more. Cyrus gets over the edge of the ship and sees you all standing there, and he does a quick double take at Venus. Sorry, Did I miss something?
Is he like addressing all of us? Are we all
Yeah,
there?
you're all standing side by side, and he's looking at all of you.
I think Ceridan just completely ignores Cyrus and goes over and just grabs Venus's hand and looks at her.
Venus is avoiding eye contact, but she takes the hand anyways.
Meadow is also walking up to Venus and she goes, is it okay if I hug you?
Venus shrugs and starts to nod.
Well, then she does.
I think Ren like sees Meadow go hug Venus and just like joins over and like joins the hug and puts his arms around the both of them and like pats Venus on the back and just, oh God, Venus, I'm so sorry.
I think Marsh. I can't cry again.
Yeah, you can.
No. We're running out of liquid in our bodies. We can't.
I physically cannot.
Marsh goes over to Venus and kind of awkwardly puts a hand on her shoulder and then just like wraps all of them in a big hug as well. Still awkwardly. It's clear Marsh doesn't get a lot of practice with hugs. But it's a big hug anyways.
Just making a ring with just a hoop with your hands.
More or less, yeah, just kind of encircling everyone.
I think Venus lets out one sob. I never wanted you guys to see any of that. You don't deserve it. It's I'm sorry.
I don't feel like that was your fault.
I think we need to jump.
Yeah, what was that about needing to jump?
Cyrus, jump.
I can tell that you all are having kind of a moment, so I definitely missed something, but, sure, and he dives off the side.
You're kidding me!
I mean, shit, if he did it, I guess fucking cowabunga.
Yeah.
Are we jumping off the side or are we just jumping in place?
Ceridan runs over to the side of the boat to assess which jumping is needed and also see where Cyrus went.
You see Cyrus, jumping. It looks like gravity has lessened even, and he's still in the air, kind of going down. But you kind of survey the scene, and as, roll a perception check, actually.
That's a 5 + 5, 10.
Okay, with a 10, as you look over the edge of the ship, you see that, whatever his name is, Cyrus is, kind of still floating in the air a little bit, and as you look over at the water wall beneath you, you can see a dark shape that is very large, and it is approaching both the Despair and the Salvation.
Oh, there's a big fat shark coming, I think. I think we have to jump out.
Marsh, like, hula hoops everyone.
Yeah, Ceridan was too low for you to
Yeah, I was gonna say. And turns to the three of them that are still, like, there, and to, Ceridan, goes, should we jump for the arch?
That might be our only way out of this.
Cool.
The shape is getting real big.
I'm ready to jump if you guys are.
Guys, the shape is getting really big.
Yeah, we should probably get to the jumping.
I hold out 2 hands to the people next to me, and I'm like, you guys want to jump together? Which I guess would probably be Venus and someone else in the huddle.
I take that hand.
Marsh takes the other hand and then holds out the other hand to Meadow.
Yeah, Meadow takes the hand. Let's all jump off the boat.
Yeah, Ceridan gets in on that action.
You all jump, and as you do, you hear a massive splash of water, followed by the largest crash of cracking wood you've ever heard as the giant spin shark launches itself through the water wall, completely demolishing both the Despair and the Salvation, sending large pieces and chunks of wood floating through the air before it lands back on the other side of the water wall. You all land on platforms of wood, spiraling around the scene, floating through the air, looking down at a furious Corvus Heath.